I'm Nikolai. I'm back with another tutorial about the web. This time we'll be talking about CSS. This is what we'll be building. It's a very simple two-column layout just to get you started. Um, I'm assuming that you have some basic knowledge about HTML because we'll be covering it with in another tutorial. Before I get started, I found this wallpaper. It's a TextMate cheat sheet. It's very useful. I highly recommend it. If you're using TextMate, get this wallpaper. You won't regret it. So this is the. It's a little hard to call it a website. This is the layout that we're going to be building. It's very simple stuff. It's for the real beginners, someone who hasn't touched CSS before. So what's let's start with what's CSS. So let me close all those open files. Let's open a blank HTML document. So when you're writing a markup, when you're writing HTML, its purpose is to be how should I say it? It's supposed to look like a document, not like a website. And the purpose of CSS is to take that document and make it look like a website. So CSS is only for styling your website. And for styling, you should use only CSS and not HTML, like tables. It's a very old practice, and yeah, that's basically it. So, how to use CSS? Well, first you need to make a new CSS file. That's easy. Now I'm using TextMate. It should be pretty similar in other text editors. Just make a new file and save it with .css file extension. So I already did that, and here is my file. And now we need to link it to our HTML file. The way we do this, well, first of all, I have opened two websites. The first one is it's w3schools.com/tags. It's a reference for HTML, and there's one element that I will be discussing right now. It's the link tag, not element, tag, sorry. We can use the link tag to point our HTML document to our CSS file. So there are a couple attributes that you need to put in that tag. The first one is rel. It defines what's the relationship between the HTML and the CSS file. In this case, the rel should be style sheet. And by the way, CSS means cascading style sheets. We'll learn why they're called cascading in a few minutes. The next attribute is href. That's simple enough. That's the path to the CSS file. And the next one is type, which says this the file that I'm pointing to is CSS file. And media screen. You can read more about media, the media attribute here. It specifies on what device the linked document will be displayed. Yeah, in our case it's screen. So another great website that I use all the time, that's w3schools.com/css. That's for referencing all the CSS properties and whatnot. So we have linked our CSS file to our HTML file, and now all we need is some markup so we can style it. And by the way, I'm just using XHTML 1.0 template. Nothing complicated here. And once again, I'm assuming that you have some basic knowledge about HTML, sorry, because this tutorial is going to be about CSS only. So let's get started with the markup. We'll make first we need a page wrapper. You'll see why we need a wrapper in a moment. So you know about tags and attributes and so on, and when you're using CSS, you're going to be using this tag a lot. It's the div tag. I believe it comes from division. It's used only to separate, at least that's my personal opinion. That's how I understand it. It's used to separate one part of your document from the rest of the document. So when I say div with an ID, we'll be talking about ID a bit later, with an ID of page wrap, basically I'm saying everything inside this div is inside my page wrap or something like this. I hope you understand. I hope you get the concept as we are working on. I believe the best way to explain it is with practice. So first we need a page wrap. Next, let's see the finished document. Here we have a header, body container for the, this could be a blog, there could be articles here, there's a sidebar, and there's a footer, just a simple layout. That's what we're going to be making. So let's make the header again, div tag with an ID of header, close the div, then we'll make the content, then we need to make the sidebar, and finally the footer. Just 1 second. Okay, so I believe it's about time I talk about what's this attribute ID. The ID attribute and the class attribute, they are used to reference your HTML, your markup back in the CSS file. So okay, we have let's just make a title. Let's say title. So how do we reference this header division, div, we'll call it div? How do we reference it back in the the CSS file so we can style it? Well, we will use the ID attribute, which we choose. I can say anything here. I can say header wrap or header whatever. We'll just keep it simple for now. And we can say like this: header background red. And we won't see anything right now because we need to, no, actually we'll see. Let's save it and preview it in Firefox, and yeah, here we have our header division with an h1 inside it. So first, let's reference the wrapper and say it's 96 pixels wide, and we'll center it. For that we need to say margin is 0 auto. We'll talk about what are those a bit later. For now you just have to take my word for it. So here we are referencing the header tag, this div with an ID of header. We are referencing this I lost my thought here. So my point was that ID is supposed to be a unique ID. The ID should be unique for each for every other tag. For example, it will be working, but it won't be right if I make another div with an ID of header. You know, for that we need to use class. Class works the same way as ID, but its purpose is to use it for when you have many divs that need to have the same properties. For example, let's say that this is body element. This div has class of body element, and let's copy this to all our divs. Oops. Because all those 4 elements will have common properties. So let's continue with the header. Now first, another important concept that I forgot to mention. We can reference all tags by just like this, just by typing the tag name, and we're going to reference body in order to change its background. Let's just use something a little bit light. EEBBCC. What's that color? Maybe not. FFAADD. Let's try this. Oh, it's even worse. Okay, whatever. No, I don't like it. Let me just copy this color. I liked it. Okay, that's better. So we can reference any group of tags just by typing the tag name, and now we're going to use the class in order to define some common properties about for all those 4 divs. So let's say what did we call it? Body element. Now we can see that I'm using a period in the beginning of the line. That's because we're referencing a class, and for all those items I want to say background white and float left. Don't worry about those properties for now, I'll explain later. So now let's delete this. Now if we save and refresh, we can see that the header division has turned white. That's because we referenced the class all elements, all tags with the class of body elements, and we gave them white background. And which tags have class of body elements? All are 4 tags. So let's continue. For the header, let's say we want it to be 9600, not 9600, 960 pixels wide, 200 pixels tall, and that should be it. Now I don't know why this hasn't centered. Is it because we haven't given the body a width of 100%? Nope. Why didn't it center? Oh yeah. Maybe I should just pause it. Oh yeah, silly me. So this one we don't need. This one as well. Okay, we named our wrapper page wrap, and I was trying to reference it with wrapper, so we need to correct it and say page wrap. And now if we save and reload, it should be centered like so. I guess now is the time to talk a little bit about the syntax of CSS, and it goes like this. You know, the general excuse me, the general syntax is like this: selector. This is where you say which elements, which tags you want to affect, like for example header or body element. Then those parentheses, in those you need to put the attributes. Attributes go like this: attribute name, semicolon, value, and this. And it doesn't matter if you put them all on the same row like so. That's perfectly fine. You can also, another common I should say layout is like this: every attribute on a new row like so. It's more readable, but it makes your CSS bigger and ultimately can be harder to read. Personally, I prefer to put everything on one row, but that's just me. So let's continue with our page or layout. So we did the header. So let's move to the, what do we call it, content. Let's go to content. And now we'll make it, how big should we make it? Let's make it 700 pixels wide, 500 pixels tall. See what we have. And but there's a little problem here. It's not quite like what I showed you. There's no space between those two elements. What we can do is say for the header, put a margin on the bottom and make it 20 pixels. And now there should be margin between those two elements. So let's move on. Let's say sidebar is how big should it be? Let's say 240 pixels and 500 pixels tall, like the content area. We'll make it the same height. So let's see what we have. Well, same problem. There is no space between those two elements, and we'll say for the content, we'll say margin right 20 pixels. And a good idea is to keep the same margins everywhere on your page, just for consistency. It gives a better and more professional look to your page. Let's move to the footer. And let's make it 960 pixels wide and 100 pixels tall. And we can see we have a footer, but no space, and we can say for the footer, put a margin on the top, make it 20 pixels. And there we have it, our basic, very basic page layout. From here, let's reference the H1 and style it a little bit. What we can say is, I haven't talked about something very important. That's the priority of selectors. For example, if I try to say H1, I'm not sure if this example will work, but let's try. If we say H1 margin 40 pixels, when I say margin, I mean margin on all sides, top, bottom, left and right. There are also other ways you can say you can define margins. For example, if we supply two numbers like we did here, let's just pretend that auto is a number. That means 0 for the top and bottom and auto for the left and right. Also, we can say 40 pixels, 30 pixels, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, for example. That means margin on the top, right, bottom, left. You can remember them just by looking at the clock, and yeah, they're just clockwise directions. Top, right, bottom, left. So let's leave it at 40. Refresh, and we can see that the title has moved away from the edge of this div. And now what we can also say is let's copy this H1, let's put it in content, refresh. We can see that both H1s have margin of 40 pixels, but what we can say now is give a margin of 40 pixels to the H1 only with an ID of only which is inside the div with an ID of header. So you can stack different selectors, and that means the h1, look for an h1 which is inside a div or any other tag with an ID of header. So if we save now and refresh, we can see that the h1, which is in the content tag, not tag element, lost its margins because we're referencing only to the h1s which are inside header. What we can also say is h1, we'll give it an ID of title, and let's leave this. So we have both our h1s affected by a certain attribute, a certain style, and now if we say h1 with an ID of title, make it red. So what we just did is said look for an h1 with an ID of title. So this the order in which you can supply selectors, no, not selectors, but okay, the order goes like this: tag dot I'm not really sure about this. Okay, I'll ask to correct me in the comments section if I'm wrong, but right now it just doesn't want to pop into my head what was the order. It was something like tag.class hash tag, no, not tag, ID. I'm pretty sure that was the correct order. Okay, correct me in the comment section if that's not quite the case. And let me see if I haven't talked about something important. We talked about what's CSS for, we talked about how to use CSS, how to link the CSS file to the HTML file. We discussed the types of selectors that you can use, and that's about it. So look for another tutorial which will cover only HTML, again basic stuff, and then yep, we're done for today. My name's Nikolai, and look for my other tutorials in the very near future.